What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. Hope you've had a wonderful week. Again, you're watching Reflections of the Silver Screen, the YouTube series where two longtime friends talk about the films that made up part of their lives. As you know, my name's Off the Cuff Tom, and with me, as always, he is the green-blooded bastard to my Kirk. He is the one, the only, Mr. Eric McClanahan. What's going on, Emac?
Living the dream. I'm excited to talk about Star Trek 3, which I recently rewatched, and I will say, better than I remembered.
So I remember I said last episode that I may have seen the movie before, and I think I've watched it several times in my life. The thing is, and here's the caveat, at different points in my life, I remember different parts of the movie. So to me, I don't think I ever watched the full movie. Well, I have. It was just, oh yeah, at 8, I remember this. And at 13, I remember that. And at I remember the whole damn thing.
Yes.
So that's what's going on there. Now, hopefully we do have someone scheduled to beam in. Hopefully they're able to make it, time dilation and wormholes as they are. So we don't know if they're going to be able to jump in. But again, we do have a seat set aside for them on our bridge. So, Eric, before we jump in, what is your spoiler-free one sentence about Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock?
Well, it's funny you say spoiler-free because the film is called Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. That's it.
I guess you're right. Well, considering after what we just came off of from one of the biggest, visceral scenes in movies up to that date, this is a big turn for Star Trek. I think that they finally came out with something a little bit lighter, a little easier to swallow, a little something, just to give you, just to stroke you and easy into things. So what did you think about the film?
As I said, watching it again after a long time, we know that the odd-numbered Star Trek films aren't as good as the even-numbered Star Trek films. That's established. There's no question about that. So this being one of the odd-numbered Star Trek films, I just sort of remembered it derisively. I was just like, this damn thing. But watching it again, which I think the last time I saw any of it was about 2 years ago during Thanksgiving. I was at some family's house and AMC, I believe.
Yep, we can pull the tapes.
Yeah, was playing all of the Star Trek films. And I was like, oh, man, I forgot. Oh, Christopher Lloyd. Oh, John Larroquette. Oh, Miguel Ferrer. And I was kind of geeking out on that. I wasn't really paying attention to the movie. Sitting down and watching the movie again, much better than I remembered. Really, really, a small story, but it really does open up the world in a way that we needed after kind of like slow crawl of 1 and a fast-paced action of 2. This is like I think you said, really just sort of ease us in to the Star Trek galaxy.
Okay, so fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on us. We are going to keep the recap of this film in under 15 minutes. And then we're going to talk about it. So luckily, we have a timer that we can see in the top corner here. So we're going to stick to that. And may whatever planetary gods that you believe in wish us luck on that. Okay, long story short, we've just come out of the whole Genesis effect. There's a brand new planet. And I don't know, what's the best way to start this off? That Bones doesn't feel like himself, that Kirk's beside himself. What do you think? Where should we start?
I think we would start with Kirk because it is the emotional core of the film, is that it begins with, as previously seen on Star Trek, a little, it begins with Spock's passing once again, which again, but and then we get.
He's not in the opening credits, so we don't know if he's in the film.
Correct. So It opens with, well, again, the search for Spock.
Okay, his name was in the opening credits because he directed the film, but still.
So we open with, Kirk's very somber captain's log, and they're, limping back to Stardock because, they part 2 happened and they got beat up. And so they're limping back to Stardock. All the trainees got the opportunity to jump, and they did. They're like, peace. And they're rolling into the dock, and that's when they get the alert that there's someone in Spock's quarters. Kirk goes in there, and he hears what sounds like Spock's voice, and it's Bones saying, come find me. Come help me. Take me home.
Yep, take me back to the mountains and on Vulcan.
He's like, you are home. We're taking you home. We're at Earth. So, they get to Earth. They get in their civilian clothes. They have their shore leave, except for Scotty, because he's commissioned immediately to go to work on the Excelsior. So they're having shore leave, and Kirk has some people by his place, most of the crew, and, they're cheersing, and they're cheers to Spock when Sarek shows up. And Sarek is like, where's my son? Why didn't you bring his body to Vulcan? Don't you know?
Again, big, huge shout out to the actor who played Sarek, that he's been able to hold this particular role for as long as he has. If I remember correctly, the name of the actor, Mark Leonard, was not only Sarek in the TV series, he was Sarek in the movies. He was Sarek in TNG. He was the original Romulan commander the first time we ever saw the Romulans on Star Trek, where we got the famous meme gif of Spock. So the fact that he's been able to play that role so regularly in it gives that idea of, not just of the bridge crew, but of just other characters in universe. Like you said, we're really universe building in this movie. So again, kudos to Mark Leonard for that. And I do like how he portrays a Vulcan, especially like later in the movie. He says, when it comes to matters of my son, logic does not work. I think that's because he fancies the humans.
Mm-hmm.
I love that about him. But yeah, Sarek shows up and was like, where's my kid? Because he figures, well, Spock, knowing that Kirk is his best friend, would have given the DL mind meld, but unfortunately he wasn't there. So it's all in Bones of all places. And because of which, they realize they got to get Bones to Vulcan so they can download, for lack of better words, download Spock to the greater consciousness to that. So Kirk goes to the Admiralty to ask, okay, cool, we got to roll. And they say, no.
Yep. Like, no, the Enterprise is being decommissioned. You aren't the emotional type. This isn't you. We need your staunch leadership. I wish I could say, and not to mention, the Genesis planet is now become an intergalactic kerfuffle. Yeah, it's a no-go. They put a gag order on it, and as a new planet, everyone is rushing to stake claim to it. So like, no, you can't go.
Do they have a flag?
Exactly. They're playing the flag game. So he's like, no, you can't do it. At the same time, Bones is also trying to commission a flight to the Genesis planet because he wants Spock's katra out of his brain. And so he talks to the guy with the flat tongue, and he's like, and which is like, again, straight up Mos Eisley. Just straight up Mos Eisley. With Tribbles.
Dude, I forgot Tribbles were in it. I'm not kidding. I cringed for a second like I was a Klingon. Like, I pop my butt pucker whenever I see a Tribble. I go, oh, dude.
Yeah. And I'm surprised we didn't get more of a reaction shot out of Bones in that scene. Now they'd be like, oh, no. But he gets arrested for blabbering about Genesis, because, again, gag order. And so they're going to send him to the funny farm. So Kirk and Sulu break him out. And then they go and they steal the Enterprise. They commit treason.
No. They steal the Enterprise again.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Admiral Kirk.
first
again.
we assumed command.
Yes.
The second time we shanghaied it. The third time we stole it. So let's just say we see that Kirk has a problem. He might have starship kleptomania.
He may very well. It's just when it comes to his ship, logic goes out the window. So they steal the Enterprise and book it out of spaceport. The Excelsior tries to follow, but Scotty took some bolts out.
Spark plugs.
Yeah.
That's what he did. He just had intergalactic spark plugs. Which is so weird, considering the fact that that is supposed to be a transwarp drive, but we haven't even hit warp 10 yet, and we still don't get transwarp drive till almost the 24th century. So what the hell kind of transwarp drive did they have? Like, was their transwarp supposed to be what would be the equivalent of what we would know as warp 10 and TNG? Like, these are things. This is me being really nerdy.
Well, Scotty has a line where he talks about the fact that, the fancier you make something, the easier it is to break.
Yep.
And I thought that was a great line. Like when they're first docking and they see the Excelsior, those reaction shots of the crew looking at the ship, like, it's like ageism 100%. They're like, flash. Who needs all that? So the Excelsior tries to follow, can't go into warp because he stole the spark plugs, and they're off.
Also, kudos to whoever the sound engineer was to try to make sci-fi jalopy sounds.
Now, while all this is going on, we are introduced to some villains, and in the film, they are Klingons led by Commander Krug, played by Christopher Lloyd.
Marty, we gotta get back to the bird of prey.
Exactly. And we see this new design of the bird of prey, which is gorgeous, beautiful. I love this redesign. With the wings painted on the undercarriage, that stark green, the moving foils, which you think, oh, that reminds me of the X-Wing. Does it? Because ILM helped create it.
Oh.
And I was like, Star Wars. We
got
most nicely, we got S-foils.
Like I mentioned, if we take a look at 1 and 2, that is a different class of ship. So it's more of a battle cruiser as opposed to the bird of prey. So can we loosely get away with calling it bird of prey? I would say yes, because we know that as a reference. But specifically, this is the first big on-screen official bird of prey that we got.
Yes.
I will split hairs there.
So Krug is out looking for information on Genesis, and he actually commissions his lover, Valkyris, to get that. And so he goes to meet up with her on her hey Valkyris. Goes to meet
available at nacellstore.com.
There you go.
I had to pull this one simply because when I saw this original figure last year or earlier this year at Toy Fair, I'm like, why don't I remember her? And then I'm like, oh yeah, she's literally on screen for all of 2 minutes. Then, boop, she's gone.
Yes. So she has gotten some Genesis information from some merchants and beams it to his ship. And he's like, and she says, I think you'll enjoy what you see there. And he's like, oh, have you seen this? And she said, yeah. And he's like, nah, that sucks. So he blows her out of the sky. The whole ship blows it up, takes off, and he heads to the Genesis planet to try and uncover the secrets of Genesis. Orbiting the Genesis planet is the SS Grissom. On board are David and Saavik from the previous film. However, Saavik looks different. She's doing something different with her hair, as you can see right here.
I don't know. I think it's the Genesis wave effect. And maybe it messes with Maybe it messes with Vulcan physiology. No one else changed except for the Vulcans.
So they're orbiting the planet, and they see signs of life forms. And they're like, well, that shouldn't have happened yet. It should be, at least a couple days. And they say, can we beam down and check it out? And the captain's like, oh, yes. So Saavik and David beam down to the planet, and they find microbes that were on board the Enterprise that were on Spock's torpedo tube that have started to
super evolve.
Yes, like
Hyper evolve would be the best term.
So like far more quickly. And they also at that point noticed that Spock's tube is empty. They rolled the stone away and the body had been gone.
Yeah, that would have worked better last month or 2 months ago.
Yeah, right. So
Jesus, no, Spock
this time. And we start hearing screaming on the planet. And they go, let's go check out the screaming. And sure enough, they find an 8 to 10-year-old Spock. So
in Earth years.
Yes. So right away in the search for Spock, I'm here to let you know, they found him.
Well, they found some form of Spock, but it was more of an empty husk of Spock. Because he does not have his Katra. His Katra is in Bones McCoy. Yes. So back to the Enterprise, warping through space, top speed. We're going to get to the Genesis planet. They get to the Genesis planet. They try to hail Grissom. They get no answer. Why? Because Krug had arrived earlier and said, hey, give me everything you got on Genesis. And they're like, no. And then he says, target their engines. Take their engines out so they'll be sitting ducks and we can talk to them. And his gunner torpedoes the engines and the whole ship explodes. Yeah, it was a lucky shot.
That's exactly what he says. So Krug is upset and shoots the gunner. And they're like, well, now we have nothing. We have no one to get answers from. And that's when they pick up the transmission from Savick and David saying, we found Commander Spock. Can we beam back aboard? And they're like, oh, there's people down there. So he beams some people down. Same time, Enterprise, whooshing. Gets there, looks for Grissom, can't get a signal from Grissom. But when they first get there, Chekhov thinks he sees something on the screen. And now it's gone. And then so they're looking.
Wait, no. You know what he found on the screen? A Wessel.
A Wessel.
Like we get more Wessels in the next film.
Yes.
But we got our first Wessel in Search for Spock.
They saw a Wessel. So they're looking out the window, which is great. I love it. All that technology. They're like, just open the window.
And they never did it again in any Star Trek. Just look out the window for the shimmer. Like I can see the shimmer coming off the blacktop in the middle of summer 2 miles away, but you can't see subspace distortion right in front of your freaking face with all your sensors. Only Kirk and Sulu can.
Exactly.
Come on, Trek.
So they see the shimmer. They go, oh, I bet that's about the size of a starship. Soon enough, the Klingons start to decloak, and they're like, fire. And so the Enterprise shoots them, sends them adrift. They get power back, shoot the Enterprise. Now they're adrift. Now we got ourselves a standoff. And we're already almost at 15 minutes. The thing is,
15 to 20. 15 to 20.
Okay. So
we're at a Mexican standoff. The Klingons went aboard the Enterprise because they know how much damage they've already done. So they're figuring, okay, let's go take the ship. We got this. They don't know how many people there are or aren't on the Enterprise right now because they don't know that Scotty set it up to nearly automate to the point that almost 2 chimpanzees and a recruit can run it.
That's right.
So Kirk, Sulu, and right, it was Kirk, Sulu,
Kirk, Chekhov, and Scotty.
Kirk, Chekhov, and Scotty, excuse me, all give the executive order to self-destruct, which I love the fact that out of everybody, Kirk being Kirk, 01, 01, 0, destruct 1.
Yep.
Of all the passwords, that is literally the 23rd century version of password 123.
Oh, I wrote it down because I also thought it was interesting. So, his login is like 011A, but the actual destruct code was 000 destruct 0.
Was it? It was that
yes.
much.
It was 000 destruct 0. So it starts counting down 2 minutes.
Never pick up my phone, okay?
Somebody changed the password on my luggage. So they beam down to the planet right at the same time that the Klingons are beaming onto their ship. And they get there, they're like, it appears to be deserted. The only thing talking is the computer. And Krug's like, talking? What is it saying? And he hears the countdown, he screams, get out, but boom, it blows up. So that's how you decommission a starship. That's how you decommission a starship. Exactly. So, I'm sorry. We skipped over a major plot point. David's dead.
Well, you have to hold them, you had to hold them all accountable. So when Kirk finally went down to the planet to try and figure out where the heck everybody is, prior to that, when he meets Kirk finally officially on planet, he goes down holding people hostage. And obviously it's now we have Teen Spock, we have Saavik, and then David. And of course in Klingon, because we don't have an established idea of what Klingon culture is, the woman is just the woman. Right. Which is funny because years later, what they do for female representation in the Klingon Empire, I think, is far better than the sexism that we saw in this film. But again, hindsight is 2020. So of course, David being the stand-up, Kirk progeny, he jumps right in front of the knife, and
yes. So the Klingon bastards kill his son, and yes, and it makes Kirk very very unhappy. So when they get down to the surface, they find the Klingons. They find, what is Spock at the time, and Saavik.
It's this version of Spock. It's just a USB drive.
Exactly. They find the Spock vessel, and Krug beams down.
I'm gonna name my next boat that.
There you go. Krug beams down and says, all right, you're all my prisoners, so I want to know everything there is to know about Genesis. So he calls his the one officer left on his ship, Maltz, and says, beam them up, Choi Chu. And Maltz beams them up, and he's like, all right, you and me, Kirk, give me what I want. And Kirk's like, why don't you fight me? He said, okay. So they fight, and it's straight up arena part 2. But it's a good time. They thrash about, they roll around, and then eventually Krug starts to fall, and Kirk's like, let me save you, because that's what we do. And Krug decides to grab his foot and be a jerk, and he's like, all right, I've had enough of you. He kicks him in the face, drops him into the lava, and then Kirk, being observant, being using tactics, grabs the communicator and says, Maltz, Choi Chu. And he's beamed back aboard, and there's Maltz, played by John Larroquette. And they say, help us out or you're going to die. He's like, I don't deserve death. He's like, oh, I don't deserve life. He's like, I'll kill you later. So they take the Klingon ship and they take off because Genesis is exploding. And
so just like the amoebas were hyper evolving, so was Spock. So we did go through a little bit of his growth, not only as half human, but obviously we do go through the Ponfar, which we'll come back to, but realizing that we have USB Spock in Bones and just the empty vessel body Spock, we need to get them back together. And what's the best way to do that is get them back out to the mountains on Vulcan. So that's what they do is they, fly out there and they're met by Admiral Sarek. All these S names, Spock, Saavik, Sarek. And they all friggin' have a K's and an S's and blah. Anyhow.
Oh, Star Trek.
Yeah. And and obviously that's where we re-meet Uhura because she just had an amazing scene when they were shanghaiing the Enterprise, which we'll get back to.
Exactly.
So
the rendezvous.
We finally get Spock and Spock back together, right?
Mm-hmm.
After a long drawn out process. And I love the fact that if you catch in that scene, however long the re-download is, hitting the reset button, it was long enough that even the Vulcan said, here, humans, have a seat. Because there were no benches there at first, but there were later.
Yep.
Just saying.
They made a little pop-up waiting room for them. Yeah. But they do the ceremony to get now I had it earlier and now I don't have it. The K word for the soul.
Katra.
Katra. Thank you. I was going to say Krata, and I'm like, that's not it. Yeah, they get the Katra from Bones back into Spock. Oh, of course. Wait, because it's a film. It's very dangerous, Dr. McCoy. Very dangerous for you. And he's like, whatever, let's do it. And hey, he's fine. So it works.
Well, that also goes to DeForest Kelly and his acting. As much as he might be the overly callous, salty dog, as much as you can be in for the Federation, he does have genuine feelings for Spock because it's always been a trifecta, the three of them. If you really think about it, Kirk is the heart of the ship, right? Spock is the brains, and Bones has always been the conscience.
Yeah, Bones has always been Jiminy Cricket. Always.
Yeah, always. So for him to just flat out go straight out and do that, it makes complete sense.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he won't take a teleporter anywhere.
Exactly. So yeah, it's successful. Spock is revived. He's back in his body. He passes by the crew and sort of regards them knowingly, but not fondly. And then finally he does recognize James Kirk and says, Jim, your name is Jim. He's like, yeah. He's like, all right. And then he wanders off and we get the title card and the adventure continues. And that's it. That was Star Trek 3.
And we almost kept it to time.
Almost.
Golf claps.
But I think the reason our recaps went was because we would say, and this happened, and let's talk about that. We would dive in the moment.
Now that hindsight is 2020, let's dive back into those particular scenes.
Exactly. So where do you want to start?
Well, let's start near the beginning. Let's start off with the Excelsior. All right. We've got the great Michael Ferrer on the Excelsior.
I love that. Every time he shows up in something, I'm so delighted to see him. You're talking RoboCop, Deep Space Nine,
NCIS LA.
Okay. No, he's such a great actor, and Stephen King's Night Flight, just really underrated. And again, he doesn't get to do a lot in this movie; he's just there. But it was one of those things. Star Trek now was because it came out in the '60s, got canceled, but people wanted to keep it alive. People loved this thing, and so now they do the motion picture in '79. It revitalizes the franchise. Star Trek 2 comes out and everyone's like, holy shit, Star Trek is where to be. So when this film, everyone was excited and everyone wanted to be in there. So we got Miguel Ferrer, we got Christopher Lloyd, we got John Larroquette, we got Robin Curtis. But I was really happy to see him. Even though he doesn't get to do much. He pretty much gets to push the pedal to the metal to no avail.
Yeah. And one other thing that you got to remember that the captain here on the ship, whose name escapes me right now, he has the 23rd century riding crop.
Yes.
Thank God he never met with Kirk, because we know that Kirk is very good and established equestrian. There's your big word for the week, folks. Uh-huh. And to have the digital riding crop, I'm like, come on, man. You're already made captain. It's got to at least be this big. You don't need something else to fluctuate the crew with.
Yeah, I think Kirk would have been happy to shove that up his butt. Yeah, he was very smug on a smug ship.
Yeah.
Smug ship.
I think he was just making up for it because, it was bigger and rounder, maybe a little bit wider. I don't know.
Exactly, yeah.
Enterprise was sleek. It's
slender,
sleek.
good
it got
shape.
the job done. It was good shape. It hit where it needed to.
Yeah, Excelsior is kind of
Excelsior is just a little girthy.
Yeah.
We're talking starships, right?
So I
Remember,
thought
kids, this is for adults.
Hey, we haven't even gotten to the sex scene. But again, it also goes to that I love that part when they're pulling into space dock and they're all looking at the Excelsior and they're just like, I don't see it. That's the future. No thanks. I think we've all
Yeah.
been there. That's future. No thanks.
And we were also talking about how transwarp drive, like, again, it doesn't make sense. The math is not mathing to me, considering what
Well,
we know.
I think they called it transwarp drive just so they could justify those sounds of a clunky transmission.
Oh, that's a good one.
So those breakdown sounds.
It sounds a little wet. Can you turn it over one more time?
So yeah, when they hear that Enterprise is going to be decommissioned, you see this sense of that they themselves feel decommissioned. They almost feel obsolete.
So I'll give you a little bit of personal on this one. I have, and obviously I don't need to put the hats on for this movie because there's no military bearing in this one at all. Right. Except the punk who got shoved in the closet, which we've all worked with that guy at some point in our lives. It doesn't matter what position it is.
You're old.
But I will say the last day that I was still in the Navy, I was beside myself, and I have in my home just a little tiny 5-foot piece of line of rope from my small craft, from my last thing I worked on, because I'm looking at one last time. I'm going to miss it. That's where I did my work. That's where I did my job. And you feel that about any other job, but when you're in a branch of service and you've made something your home, you own one of those nuts, you own one of those bolts. So I fully understand where they come from. And as a matter of fact, that piece of line will be going into the box with me, if you catch my drift. It'll be going into my Mark 6 photon torpedo when I go.
In your tube.
So yeah, it will be going in the tube with me. So I completely and 100% and then some get it.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks. We can feel some feelings here too.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. You know what? Star Trek. It binds us. It moves us.
It's like sci-fi is an allegory for life.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Well, and speaking of allegories, let's talk about the inclusion of the Klingons in this film and the arms race to control Genesis. Because it is, you got to remember, this film was made in 1983. It came out in 1984. We were in the thick of the Cold War.
I was going to say.
Yeah. So it is very much a Cold War fear film.
Mm-hmm.
And, the Klingons are meant to be that federation of...
which I find hilarious, considering on TOS, the Klingons were more indicative of other Asian cultures, not the Russians, but more. So in the great words of Worf, we don't talk about that.
Exactly. But yeah, I thought I was doing a lot of reading up on this film, and Nimoy was very involved in a lot of the planning of the film, and yeah, he did want to, because they wanted the villains to be Romulans, and he was like, no, let's do the Klingons because it's an arms race, and I think that's going to get that point across more immediately. I think he made the right choice. I think
if they went with Romulans, then we're looking more of a Civil War kind of deal, and I don't think it would have made the same mark.
Yeah,
and the fact that the Klingons are looking at this great piece, and this is exactly how science goes in the real world. We've come up with this great new thing that we can do to save humanity or save the races. And some twisted individual turns it into a weapon of mass destruction. And for the Klingons to go to that point, to that nth degree, really is quite, again, it hits home to the whole idea of what the Cold War was. It is the nuclear arms race, only in space.
So yeah, I thought that was really cool. I thought it was a neat way to anchor the film in the time that it was made, but still give it the timelessness of, being so far flung in the future that we can't imagine what life would be like then. But life is cyclical. Like it is going to be the same thing. We are going to have the same problems,
Mm-hmm.
rearing their head throughout
It's just
time
wrapped up in
immemorial.
a different, different wrapper, different bow, but it's the same gift.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So, when the crew decides to side with Kirk and steal the Enterprise and go and reclaim Spock's body, man, they are a force to be reckoned with.
You're absolutely right. Nimoy wanted to make sure that there was a solid, you know, well-rounded cast. So to see, Walter Koenig and George Takei and James Dugan, have these bigger roles, and of course Nichelle Nichols, it really does give you that fuller cast sense. And I think it was smart that it happened in the third film. Like the first one set up what we needed to reestablish in Trek. The second one, again, it is still it's cock it's cock and Spock, Kirk and Spock.
Well,
Don't worry. We're not to this picture yet about that stuff.
Right. It makes sense that in this film they are such a cohesive unit because they were galvanized by their battle with Khan. In the first film, like I said, there was a distance between the crew. Kirk was all business, like we got to go, we got to save the world. We'll chum it up later. And then 2 happens, and again galvanized the crew, brought them together. So when they meet in his home and they cheers to fallen comrades, like now the crew is together. They're a cohesive unit, and so when they initiate their plan.
That's not to say that they weren't before. It's that since they had gone their separate ways and Kirk went to becoming a desk jockey, that kind of stuff happens.
Right.
So I think that the re-galvanization, as you said, makes complete sense. So the pacing works out really well, and as we see that as we go on in the future films, that
having the shared boss.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I think next we should talk about again the Klingon ship redesign, the beauty of that ship, the efficacy of that ship. Like they blow the Grissom up without meaning to. Like
it was a lucky shot. And this is another one. Like, why not? And I'm no Stephen P. naval expert, tactician Kobayashi Maru kid. Why not just put one over the bow instead of aiming for their engine? Now, don't get me wrong. I think that dude would have got vaporized either way. If he put one over the bow as opposed to just disabling the engines, Christopher Lloyd's just going to go zap, or I'm going to sick my space dog on your face.
Well, and I wonder why he used the torpedo. Like they've shown the efficacy of the phasers on that ship when they took out the merchant ship at the beginning. So why don't you use the phasers? And now, again, the next time he has a face-off with a Federation starship, he tells the guy, target engines only. Understood? And the guy's like, yeah, okay. And he used the phasers, not the torpedo.
Maybe because, did he actually tell them to use the torpedoes in the first shot, and that's why they went for phasers in the second?
No, he did. He just said target engines. The guy said okay, and then he fired a torpedo, and Grissom went up like what's a ship in science fiction that blew up after one well choreographed shot? It's on the tip of my tongue. It's like
I don't know. You just use the force. You'll find it.
Yeah, it's like a star that only brought death. I don't know. ILM would know. I'll ask him.
I don't know. Let me stretch here.
Lock S wells in attack position.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all right.
Well, that came in handy. That was not planned, folks. I just happened to put the shirt on today.
So, yeah, I just thought the Klingon ship again. I just love the design of it. It's so beautiful in space. You know
what else is beautiful in this space?
In this space?
In this space and time? It may happen to be.
Idiot.
I don't know who that is, but I know that this is Eisner, Glad, and what's the third one? I'm forgetting it. I had to take my notes off. Nominee. He may or may not know a thing or two about, writing comic books for DC. He may have written one of my favorite episodes of Master of the Universe of all time, which is my comfort episode whenever I'm having a bad day. But more importantly, he's the guy that came up with this idea. He is the one, the only, Mr. Tim Sheridan. Tim, how you doing there up there?
Oh my God, I completely lost track of time.
That's okay. You're on the West Coast. We're on the East Coast.
Showing up. I am so
we blamed
sorry.
a wormhole. It's fine.
Yeah, time dilation. It's okay.
What did I miss? What have you talked about? What's happened?
Well, we've done a quick brief recap of the film, and now we're just talking about some favorite scenes of ours.
Okay.
And,
well, before we do that, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for showing that ridiculous image from Lower Decks. I loved getting to do those little previously ons or next time on Lower Decks, just because it gave me a chance to sort of homage my favorite moments from all of Star Trek and stuff. And I'm such a huge fan of all of the original cast movies, but Star Trek 3 is a big one too for me. So,
well,
thanks for
again, we're sorry that we missed doing Wrath of Khan. I know how important that was to you.
Oh my gosh, that movie is so incredibly important. That movie it's a better movie than it needs to be, and it is it's one of my favorite movies, let alone Star Trek movies.
Agreed.
Just Kirk's story in that movie is so beautiful. The idea of taking this character that people knew from in the 60s and having him deal with aging and the natural changes in one's sort of career, the progressions and the things, and then dealing with the loss of his best friend, but also gaining his son in the middle of that. I mean, there's so much great, rich, beautiful storytelling and character work happening in that movie. It's almost like it's called The Wrath of Khan, but Khan is sort of Khan's amazing, but is almost, for me, secondary to Kirk's journey in that story. Khan is representative of so much about that journey. However, I could just watch an entire series of Kirk sitting at a damn computer console when he wants to be out there hopping galaxies. So that's...
well, we know Strange New Worlds only has about, 2 more... season and a half left, so we're just going to leave that there. And I already know how you feel about New Trek, so we're not going to talk about it.
Oh no, I mean, I love New Trek. I mean, it's just completely, my feelings about New Trek are that it's just I don't think you can compare it to classic Trek.
No,
I think it's like they're just to me very different things. We're going for a different kind of thing now. Because entertainment habits have changed, the way we view things, the way we make things. However, I do believe that if you made a broadcast Star Trek show on CBS that with a classic structure, a teaser and 5 acts, you take the budget that you do for 10 episodes of a big streaming show and spread it out over 20 episodes, let's
put this out here in the universe. I completely believe
diehard Star Trek fans a very classically structured Star Trek show, episodic, loosely serialized. Like, if you just do that, because of the changing dynamics of viewership on broadcast television, the number of diehard Star Trek fans who would tune in for that show would make it the highest rated show on broadcast television. Paramount, CBS, call me.
I mean, he already knows how to write Star Trek. So what are they waiting on?
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, you could just at this point, just the way things have changed, you could just do boring old Star Trek, boring to you perhaps, executives, but to so many fans who are just who would love a chance to just have a very classic Star Trek show again. It would be the number one show on television, on broadcast.
Well, Tim, you bring up an interesting point when you talk about how things have changed, because we watched Space Seed, where we're introduced to Khan, and we understand his background, that he was a dictator in the eugenic wars, which they set 30 years in the future from when the show was made. So the show was made
my freshman year of high school, just so we all know that I am the youngest guy in the room here.
So, the episode aired in 1967, and they say that the eugenic wars happened in 1996. Well, we all lived through 1996, and we didn't have the eugenics wars, but I thought it was
that
really
we
fascinating
know of.
that right. But I thought it was really fascinating that that Roddenberry et al. Were like, yeah, I give us about 30 years before we really fucked it up.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. That's true. That's a great point. That really is. Like that's the ticking clock that we were looking at. And nobody, and the idea was also not just that's what Roddenberry and the writers thought. It's that's what they thought the audience of the time would accept. That would make sense to them and be believable.
Yeah. We were in the midst of the Cold War.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, but we also, it was considered at that point, to us, it's more palpable because we can see ourselves in 30 years. We can't imagine ourselves in, such a long time. We don't want to have like big spoilers like con like this.
Yes. Can I ask a question about that?
Please.
So I understand that that the Romulan ship came back in time and that changed the timeline and altered events in the Kelvin
timeline. Yeah.
Kelvin timeline. But how did it change a character who was, at least for our purposes, a Mexican man playing or Mexican American man playing an Indian man into a British man? I don't understand how moving through time changed him so much. Like just his background, like where he's from. Like I don't get that Khan is this English guy now.
Well, if I remember correctly, from Space Seed, they said that his genetic makeup was several different races.
Eugenics. That's the answer. I have been asking this question for so long, and I've never been able to understand it. But the fact is, somehow the genetic manipulation might be different in the Kelvin timeline. Oh, you have saved me from this.
I completely Sherlocked that one. Okay, just so you know.
Tom, I'm not kidding. Like that has been bugging me. That has been my biggest issue for so long, and I never once put it. I can't believe my writer brain never considered. Well, it's eugenics, you moron. I should.
Hold on, just Tim. I love you, and I will never put that little comma. You never will never come out of a sentence from my mouth about you.
Oh, well, that's definitely from me, though. I'm just like, I don't know why I never called myself a moron and figured that out. That's wild. But we're talking about Star Trek 3, right? And so, like, obviously, it is such a sequel to Star Trek 2. It is such the trilogy of 2, 3, and 4
I didn't know until Eric told me last episode that I didn't. I personally had no clue that they were all being developed at the same time. So there was some sort of through line.
It's interesting too because Nick Meyer mostly wrote the screenplay for 4, and then obviously came back and co-wrote and directed 6, but didn't have anything to. I think he was given a shot at 3 and didn't want to do it. I believe, but
I think I read that too. He didn't. Oh, he was upset over editorial choices on 2.
Yeah.
So he was like, "No, I'm good. You burned me. I'm out."
See, this is why I love doing this with Eric. He does all the smart work. I do all the computer work for this. So I do all the backgrounds and pictures. He does the hard work. We both watch the film.
But he doesn't have anything to be upset about with 2. I mean,
right?
Like it really worked. It really
just
worked.
A bit. I mean, we're still talking about it 50 years. 50 years.
I understand though, from his perspective. Like I know what that feels like when you're close to something. You really care about what you. He was not a Star Trek fan, but he really cared about that story. I think that's why I love that movie so much because he comes at it from a real human perspective. You could kind of take that story and tell it with other characters and other places and times. But obviously he spent so much of his time and creative energy may be giving life to that thing that when it goes into the edit room and you're not there and it comes out, I know what that feels like to like send the baby down the river. Like that's what I do as a writer. I'll write the screenplay and I send it away and hope that like what I've the movie in my mind that I've put on paper is as a blueprint is the thing that comes back. But so many other people come in with a lot of creative decisions and creative choices, and sometimes non-creative choices. Sometimes it's just business choices. And those things are important too. I mean, it is show business, right? So I get why he would feel that way, but I bet him coming back to co-write 4 or to direct 6 and co-write that, like, that's all part of the process of what Kirk's going through in Star Trek 2, which is growing up, growing up until you feel young.
Right.
Yeah.
You bring up something interesting when you talk about people going in and changing things, because in Star Trek 3, we get something of a retcon on Genesis when David has to admit that he used unstable protomatter in its matrix, which created the kerfuffle of the rapidly aging planet and the rapidly aging reanimated Spock.
Now, why do you call that a retcon?
I don't think it's a retcon. I think it's more the fact that it was there. We just didn't establish it in the second movie.
It was just new information. Like, new information isn't a retcon. I mean, that's I take that. I feel a personal connection to that is because of the Alan Scott book that I wrote for DC, where a lot of people, before I came to the book.
You mean that one that's over your shoulder and over Eric's shoulder and right sitting on my shelf right there that we absolutely love and adore?
Thank you. But I feel a particular the word retcon really bugs me. First of all, Alan Scott, DC had him come out of the closet before I got there, so it wasn't part of my book. My book dealt with the what that meant, but still, regardless, I feel such a personal connection to this character that I would tell people, I'm like, why do you call that a retcon? It's not a retcon. It's that you got new information about him. Like when if late in life, if your uncle, came out of the closet, you wouldn't scream retcon in his face, it's new information. And he lived his life in a way that you didn't know that was the truth about him, but it became, and it's DC's character. They get to say that that's, the way that he is and what he is and who he is. So anyway, new information coming out about Genesis is just that to me. It's not a retcon. It's just,
and that's why I think Savick
more story,
excelled. That's why I think Savick excelled at saying that, the apple doesn't fall far from the Kirk tree, does it?
Right, which is a beautiful development of the story of the Kobayashi Maru, right? It's basically David's Kobayashi Maru.
Right.
You also is that he gets all the blame for it. Like I just would love it if you had time and if it was a different movie, it would be that Carol did it, but. We have friends over at IDW. I think there's a graphic novel in there somewhere. Oh, interesting. Yeah. No, it would be.
Who do we know?
Yeah, well, we know everybody. And David would take the credit, I'm sorry, not the credit, but the blame. He would take the blame for it to protect her. But where is Carol?
Yeah, she was never mentioned in the third film at all.
Where is Carol?
That was another thing I read about, that she was disappointed that she wasn't invited back ever. She thought, maybe the fourth one, maybe the fifth one, and then it was over, and she's like, well, okay.
It's tough though, because you've introduced a character that unless she dies, the question is, well, when are she and Jim Kirk going to get back together?
Well, and that's Kirk kryptonite. To have her in the rest of the series, to have her showing up is going to take something away from Jim's cavalier attitude, his willingness to throw himself in front of lasers.
I think that's true. I think David is what complicates that in the story, and it's a double beat if it's Carol and David, and David, it hits even stronger for him, and I think that partially has to do with the performance of Merrick Buttrick, which I think is really touching. I think he's really, really terrific in those movies. But yeah, so I think it probably would end up being a double beat. It would also, but it does address the thing in Star Trek too about getting older, settling down, slowing down. And those obstacles had to be removed. I mean, I think David, unfortunately, it's unceremonious the way he goes in this movie, but mostly, but at least it's done to save not just Savick, but Spock is really what it is. It's David saving Spock.
Now, speaking of eugenics and how things change, we established we've come up with a fan theory. All right, just before you got on here, that apparently the Genesis wave only affected Vulcans, because obviously we have new young Spock, and that's how we also had the recast.
You think that the recast was because of the Genesis effect?
Yeah, we're gonna say that because Vulcans don't cry.
Well, but don't we see her on the Grissom beforehand? Why would the Genesis?
Yes, but it's oozing radiation.
Ever since the creation of Genesis.
Yeah, ever since the bomb went off, she just.
So you think all the Vulcans who were on the Enterprise have
exactly
have
the
all
Genesis
been recast?
effect?
They've all
Yeah,
been recast.
it's something about green blood. I don't know.
You know what? Let me just say this right now. I love the hustle, but I hate this theory. Like with the heat of a white hot of 1,000 white hot suns. I mean, look, recasts are unfortunate. Kirsty couldn't do it. Didn't want to do it, right? I love Robin Curtis. It's a very different Savick.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, but I mean, I don't.
Well, Eric, you were saying how
canon
well,
going.
you were saying how well Robin Curtis, her delivery as a Vulcan, which I have to agree is 100% better than Kirstie Alley's, especially as you were mentioning when she was giving the news to Kirk.
Yeah, when she has to tell him David is dead, she delivers it dispassionately, but there is still a bit of empathy in there. And
it's amazing. She's feeling stuff. You see how much she's feeling and not showing. Exactly. Which is the thing about Vulcans that everybody gets wrong so many times. People telling these stories get it wrong so many times. We were so spoiled with Leonard Nimoy, Mark Lenard. I would say even Kirstie Alley, even though if Robin Curtis portrays the Vulcan stuff better, I still think Kirstie Alley does it better than a lot of folks who came later. And I don't necessarily fault the actors. I think it's a direction problem. And, we got to a point where we just started portraying Vulcans as dicks. I was just like, that's not what this is. I think also, I would say Tim Russ was great. I thought, he was really in the model of like Leonard Nimoy and Mark Lenard's delivery of how to be a Vulcan. But then after that, it kind of went all over the place, unfortunately. But we're getting back there.
Other things that we were talking about, speaking of Vulcans, let's start off with the first Vulcan that we see in the film. How wonderfully that particular scene with Kirk and Sarek is.
Yes. The reason I asked you to do a screen grab of this is because a lot of people lately have been talking about how ugly current cinema is. The Netflixification of what we're seeing on screen with the color correction and everything being so flat, everything being so overexposed. The lighting in that scene, the humanity that Nimoy got with the deep shadows and the lines on their faces and the tight close-ups of their lips as they're speaking and Shatner's eyes. This is so beautifully composed. These are the things you don't see anymore from filmmakers, and I was really blown away by this scene.
It's incredible, but I also think so much. It's beautifully directed. Leonard Nimoy was a fantastic actor's director, and Mark Lenard, just a classically trained Shakespearean genius who could kind of do anything, brings so much to it. And talk about Vulcan delivery. I mean, really, in a lot of ways, Leonard Nimoy created it, and Mark Lenard came in and followed that blueprint, but helped perfect it. And the two of I think, but where it really shines for me is how good Shatner is, like in that scene and in a lot of scenes that Nimoy directs. But Shatner is an interesting guy. Like and he's a brilliant actor. And I think sometimes he gets he's been, people have made jokes about his acting over the years in the past, but I've seen it up close and I know how good he is. And what was amazing was seeing when Boston Legal happened, and I started seeing like, oh my gosh, somebody knows how to write for Shatner. When you know how to write for Shatner, it's unreal. Or when you have a situation where I can't imagine how weird it was for him to take direction from Leonard Nimoy, but I have to hope that if there was a competitive spirit to it, he went into it and the competition wasn't to reject whatever, Leonard Nimoy directed, however he directed him. It was to just be as good as he could be, and sort of not even, maybe he was working so hard that he was trying to prove that he didn't even need a director or whatever. But whatever happened, it's one of his best performances in this movie.
Yeah, we win.
Terrific. We yeah,
they
exactly.
fight.
No matter what happened, we won because it's fantastic.
Now we've spoken about how the volcanism has been shown here on screen between Nimoy made the blueprint, Mark Leonard refined it, and then just to smooth and stroke things out, we have to talk about this.
Yes,
Vulcan finger stuff.
So where do you fall on this? Do you think that Saavik ends up carrying Spock's child in the canon? How do you feel about all that?
So I was telling Tom before you got on, I watched this movie on DVD, and there was a special feature that was a spotlight on the actor who played Spock at that point in his leaping evolution. And he talked about that scene. And he mentioned, oh yeah, the Pon farr scene with Robin Curtis. He was like, it was a really emotional moment. And, Nimoy approached it wondering how much do we show, how sensitive are we with the subject? And as he's talking about this, I'm sitting there going, wait, that's a sex scene? I had no idea. But he did say that Curtis had mentioned that she heard a rumor that there was a Jettison storyline of a pregnant Saavik in subsequent films. But he talked about how generous a scene partner she was in that scene and how she put him at ease. And when he takes her hand, that was a natural reaction on his part that wasn't in the direction. And yeah, it's a great scene, and it really does. You can see it however you want,
Yeah, what's interesting is I don't know if the decision was made in the edit or what, but I don't think you need it to be anything more than it is. It's a focusing of, that pubescent thing that Spock is going through, that agony, that strange thing he's experiencing, and focusing him. The telepathic aspects of being a Vulcan clearly at play here, and I think that what matters is how intimate it is. It is incredibly intimate. Whether it's sexual, I don't think that that would be weird and opens up a lot of questions about consent and age and things like that. So, but I think that it still has the same effect story wise, and that's all I care about. Like it is intimate, and it's meant to be intimate, and it is a blessing that Saavik is imparting. It's something that, thank God, Saavik is there, because Spock probably wouldn't survive the boiling of his blood.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Tim Russ as Tuvok go through the Pon farr, and he didn't have another Vulcan there on the ship. So yes, you can look at it, yes, and have the dirty mind and go to Risa with the whole scene, or you can look at it as more of a, and this is the way I look at it. You think about when we do a mind meld, it really is, something in their hands that keeps them mentally locked together with the other individual. So however Vulcan physiology is, what she's doing is more of a kindness than it is.
Yeah.
Hey, let me.
Right. It's not a tactile release. It's a tactile
relief,
calming ritual.
Yeah, and also I don't think he would survive without it. I mean, I think that that's the idea, especially with the Genesis effect and everything that he's going through. His body is ripping itself apart every 5 seconds, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a shame ILM didn't get that whole scene bone thing.
Yeah.
Like they just should have dropped that scene. It's if the effect didn't
It's
work that
fine.
well.
It's fine, maybe by today's standards, but back then it was fine for me.
It was very like American Werewolf in Paris or London.
Right.
Yeah.
London, not Paris.
In London, yeah,
London.
definitely London.
But speaking of Spock's agony and his rapid aging, I have a tendency these days, now that I do this film talk business, to watch the credits as a movie is ending. And I saw that Harvey Bennett, the screenwriter and producer, does have a voice credit as the ship's recorder. But
right.
I also saw a voice credit at the end credits. Spock screams Frank Welker.
Frank Welker.
Yeah.
I was just watching some old G1 Transformers when I was late coming over here.
Funny because I have your Cyberverse figure right here.
I was just talking about, in fact, literally, this was like a half an hour, 45 minutes ago. I was telling my husband, I was like, I just was at a couple of conventions with Frank recently. I've worked with Frank on Scooby-Doo a few times, and he's just an incredible, delightful human being. And I saw him at the airport.
Sorry, we're just being slightly jealous. Yeah, Frank and everything.
I mean, he's incredible. I mean, he's a legend. He really is. And I saw him at the airport in Denver on my way back from Fan Expo. And having worked with him, I was like, well, I should go say hello. And then he put on sunglasses, but he didn't see me. But then he put on sunglasses, and I was like, oh, he doesn't want to be approached by anyone. So even though it's a professional thing and I'm an actual it's not like a fan coming, I'm like, well, I am a fan is the thing. So I'm sure I would have looked, just even as someone who's worked with him, I would have looked like a big fan. So I left it alone. Isn't that great though? His credits are unreal. The amount of things that he has been a part of and has touched and continues to do is staggering. I mean, he's all over Hollywood and has been more than our entire lives.
I'm still the young one here.
Speaking of Harv Bennett, by the way. Oh, sorry.
Oh, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, Harv Bennett. I don't know if you ever read the screenplay for Star Trek 3, which is available. It's out there. You can find it online, and it taught me reading it years and years and years ago. It taught me a valuable lesson that I incorporated into my work that I still use to this day, which is I never thought of a script or a screenplay as a dialogue with the rest of the creative team that's working on the thing until I read Star Trek 3 by Harv Bennett. I thought of it like this is the movie. Like everything that's here on the page is going to be in the movie. And he adds so much more to it than that. There is the scene at the bar when McCoy goes to the bar, and it's interior. The slug line is interior bar night. And let me read it to you. It says, a crowded, smoke-filled watering hole of the 23rd century, filled with a smattering of civilians, Starfleet personnel, and visitors from strange and far-off civilizations. It does not have the bizarre qualities of the Star Wars bar, which is across the street.
Wait. Here's the best part. Before you got on here, we already made that analogy.
Oh, you did?
So Bones goes to Mos Eisley.
Yeah. And then we talked about, making sure you get that one lucky shot just right.
Yeah. But it is funny. And this is also, there's two lessons in this for me. One is having that dialogue with the people who are reading, the executives who are reading it, the artists and creative people who are going to be involved in the thing. It doesn't stop them reading the movie. It doesn't take them out of it to get that bit of context that he put in there, which is great. The other lesson in it, though, and it's, by the way, it's a little bit of his personality. So it's a great dialogue you see between him and the reader. and it will never be seen by the audience. The audience is never going to know that was in there. If this screenplay hadn't been put online years ago, I would have never known that it was in there. But the other piece of it that it still comes up to this day, and we talk about it all the time. I'm in a writer's room right now. We're talking about it all the time. Is the minute you invoke something in the script, even if you're saying it's not that, like in this case, he's like, it's not the Star Wars bar. Well, you've put the Star Wars bar in everybody's head who's making the thing. And now what you end up with is something that's very akin to the Mos Eisley Cantina in a lot of ways. And even though his point was to say it's not that, it still ended up being kind of like that.
And I wonder if that stuff was put in there because he also approached the script as a producer. Because he's like, everything I write, we have to make. So he's saying to everyone, hey, he's given those breadcrumbs.
Well, if you really read it closely, he says it does not have the bizarre qualities of the Star Wars bar, which is across the street. Saying it does not have the bizarre qualities is, I would assume, Harv Bennett's way of saying this is a much cheaper version of Mos Eisley Cantina.
Well, just looking at that picture that I put up, they're more humanoid, they're less alien looking. That's less you got to do as far as, like you're saying, production value.
We're doing an affordable version of that is kind of what he's saying there as a producer, Eric. So that's a really
I think the only overly makeup character, with prosthetics and everything, was when Bones was walking in and you have like the guy with the gold shimmer. That's about it. He had a few ridges and that really was it.
Yeah.
Even the waitress just was over makeup.
It's a flat tongue. You do to do that character. You flat tongue. It's that and Adam Sandler.
Maybe. I can't get all I got, Captain.
I want to talk about some of the pop culture references that have come out of this film. So, like when Kirk is kicking Krug in the face, saying, "I have had enough of you," which was revisited in the South Park Bigger, Longer, Uncut, when Satan finally turns on Hussein. Did you not catch that?
No, I didn't. Dude, do you know when the last time I've seen Bigger, Longer, and Uncut? My dad was still alive, okay?
I remember I saw it in the theater and I was like,
me too.
That's Star Trek 3. But when...
Well, remember, because I'm the youngest one here, I didn't catch that reference.
When they
look
get
at him.
to
Look at him.
Vulcan,
How much younger do you think he is? Really? Look at
this
him.
one?
Yeah, look at him.
Right?
I see a lot of gray in that beard.
And every single one of them's earned.
You're in good company. And this is actually a reverse pop culture reference, but when the Vulcan bird of prey is landing, the Klingon bird of prey is landing on Vulcan and the wings go up, I was reminded of the Family Guy Star Wars, where they say permission to land like a dainty little butterfly.
That's right.
Nice.
A dainty little butterfly.
And I wrote this in my notes because I'm watching the ritual where they're trying to get the Katra from Bones back into Spock, and she starts speaking, and I'm like, did she just say Klata Barato Nikto? She didn't, but it was damn close. Damn close.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about...
So,
go ahead. You got more? Go.
So I said this to Tom, and I don't know how recently you watched the film, Tim, but
I've seen it. I think I saw it a few months ago, maybe a few months ago, but I've seen it about 357,000 times and read it.
Right. You might get this. So in a scene when Nimoy is speaking to Shatner and Spock is finally saying, Jim, your name is Jim. He does this acting with his face, and I'm watching it and I'm thinking, he's doing Harrison Ford right there. He's doing a Harrison Ford with his face. And if you guys, it's hard to explain, but go back and watch it.
Yeah.
100%. I'm like, oh, he's doing a Harrison Ford.
By the way, when I was a kid, I grew up in a very small town in Rhode Island, out in the woods, and very far from the nearest toy store. It would be very hard to find things. Comic books, we did not have a comic book store until 1988. It was a crazy place to live, but I loved it. But there was a hobby shop that I would sometimes go to, and I would always covet like building models. I built Enterprise models and stuff when I was a kid, and they had on a rack right near the front door when you walked in, they had these hanging there, and they're from Erdl. So that's why they kind of like bought them, because they bought models from Erdl. And I never got them when I was a kid. And I finally, when I was an adult and I had my own money, I was like, wait a minute, why don't I own them? Which are the Star Trek 3 Erdl figures.
Oh, nice.
That is fantastic.
3/4-inch figures. So you've got Spock, you've got Scotty. There you go.
All in the maroons too.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Captain Kirk. And unfortunately, Klingon leader instead of Krug.
Right.
They don't give him his name.
This is when they got the models before the script was finished.
But you see, he comes with
the dog.
Nice.
Well, it's a Targ, isn't it?
I think, I believe it's called a dog, Targ, but ultimately,
but back then we didn't know that word. But yeah.
Interestingly enough, I was talking about it. I'm in pretty good with the nacelle company. Have you seen these figures yet?
Oh yeah. I mean, I have all of my other like Diamond Select and Art Asylum and Playmates and every other thing is all in the other room. But these were my Star Trek 3 ones I wanted to show you. But yes, the nacelle stuff is very intriguing. But
I can tell you with absolute certainty they are stunning figures.
That's wonderful to hear. Like there was bumpiness around that. Like the prototypes all looked amazing, and then the first shipments started coming out. And
that was all quality control.
Yes, and so I was glad I kind of waited, and then my understanding is that it's all been fixed.
Yes,
so that's great.
I can say that it has my guarantee on it. I'm not no Brian Volkwhite, but it has the off the cuff seal of approval. And the reason I say that is I also have a whole shelf of their products. So I've even since we're showing off things on cards.
I really wouldn't mind having a whole shelf of their products, Nacelle Company.
Let's see.
I'd certainly love to put them behind me and talk about them on every show that I go on.
Oh, nice.
Look at that. Oh my God.
Yeah. So
unreal.
But I can't wait to see what else they're doing. But again, now going back to it, since we were talking about story and character, the one big thing that I mentioned before some late guy showed up was the fact how well Nimoy, as you even said, is an actor's director. How well all the other characters, all the other, bridge crew really were flushed out even further. Even though Uhura had the one, what's that?
Well, you just put up Uhura right then when you said
Yes.
that, and that Uhura scene is the best thing she got to do, besides, of course, the dancing in Star Trek V.
Of course.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just that when you're talking about all of the great things that the supporting cast got to do in this movie, that scene is just like unbelievable and so memorable, and it's so quick. And then she's done.
Yeah, she shows back up with Savick. I'll meet you at the rendezvous. Like rendezvous to me is like, hey, I'm gonna charter something out and be on Genesis as well. Not, hey, I'm gonna go meet you on Vulcan.
And Admiral, all my hopes. It's so simple and so beautiful and perfect.
Yeah.
And that's Uhura to a T too.
Yeah.
What
did you say? Has heart racing or blood pumping?
Right?
Good guy?
Get in the closet.
In the closet.
Fucking closet.
She's so terrific. By the way, my first ever Star Trek convention was in 1989. I went to the Omni Biltmore in Providence, and the guest was Nichelle Nichols, and I got to meet Nichelle Nichols as a kid and get her to sign an autographed 8x10 glossy that I still have, and it was incredible. It was the coolest thing ever.
Lucky. All I got are TNG.
Could be worse. No, and I also like that in that same vein, we get to see, Sulu flip the giant security guard who called him Tiny.
Don't call me Tiny.
Don't call me Tiny.
What about the wardrobe? What about the Earth wardrobe in this?
Yes, I love this.
Thank you.
Yes, these guys they spring into action from the middle of shore leave. So all you have in uniform is Scotty and Uhura because they're still working. Everyone else is showing up in their leather jackets and just looking spiffy.
Capes, leather cape, shoulder shawl things.
Like Sulu was.
Yeah, and it's incredible, that cape. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. Also, yeah, and I'm sure you talked about this in the recap, but well, you won't know this, Tom, but Doogie Howser's dad was Captain Styles.
The mustache and the riding crop.
Yeah, the riding crop, which is so weird.
And the great Miguel Ferrer.
Oh, there's Miguel Ferrer. Yeah, he was just they're so terrific in this. The whole section with Scotty and the Excelsior, and it's absolutely it's so good, and all, like you say, all the supporting players getting.
I mentioned that from one surgeon to another, all Scotty did was pull the spark plugs.
He pulled the spark plugs. That's so great.
Holy crap, that was Doogie Howser's dad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But see, I always make the correlation from Doogie Howser to Vinny to Newsies.
Oh yeah. Vinny Del Pino.
Yep.
Who ended up originating the role of Timon on Broadway in The Lion King. Which was he was great. He was great. So the Enterprise.
Less hand shots.
I love big set pieces that disrupt everything, like we had in Generations when we lose the Enterprise. I love those things that back you into a corner. And it's big, bold storytelling. The Enterprise is the other star of this entire franchise, and
Absolutely.
We're going to blow it up. And that's huge. It's a big swing, and it's exciting. And the scene itself, it's beautiful, and the line that follows it is not only perfectly written and poetic, but also it kind of explains why you need that moment in the movie and why you need to see that shot that you just showed, which is so beautiful, when Kirk says, "My God, Bones, what have I done?" And Bones McCoy, his heart, Kirk's heart says, what you had to do, what you always do, turn death into a fighting chance to live. It's poetry in such a way that when people discount this movie, I point to that scene, that moment, and just say, find me better dialogue, better writing. There's some good stuff. There's great dialogue in Star Trek 2 as well. But that line, that moment, covers the entire franchise and the entire career of Kirk and every other captain and every other main character in this franchise. What you had to do, what you always do, turn death into a fighting chance to live. And it's exactly what he did. It's what he did on the Genesis, in the Genesis cave, except he did it with Spock that time, and now he did it with the Enterprise, Now
I'm going to flip this on its head, because, we had the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Then we go back to this scene where it's the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many, bringing Spock back. What did you think of that from a writing perspective, of them flipping the script on that?
Well, here's the thing. I don't fully buy it, right? Like, I don't fully buy it. But what the beauty of it is, you don't have to. The question, I think, is, who is he talking about? Is he talking about Spock's needs, or is he talking about his own?
And that's what I think. I think it was Kirk being being selfish to no end. And you figure everybody on the Excelsior.
Yeah. Saying, I don't accept death. I don't accept the Kobayashi Maru.
I think it's more for me. That beat is I need you. I will do anything to have you back. You are the part of the holy trinity, the id, the ego, and the super ego that makes up Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And we can't do this without you. I can't do this without you, and I have to keep doing this. So I don't know. I mean, I think I can read it both ways. I think he's saying he might be selfish, and it might also be that he's doing it for Spock, because Spock's needs are more important to him in that moment. But it's Mark, but Sarek says to him, but at what cost? Your ship, your son. So in that case, it doesn't feel like the maths, for that. But that's drama. That's the thing. And so, yeah, I may not fully buy the axiom, the needs of the few outweighed the needs of the many, or the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many, however you want to look at it. I don't fully buy the axiom, that flip on the axiom. I think the other one is much easier to get. The original version is much easier to understand and to agree with. But I think I also understand what it means to be a person who with a heart, who has needs, and knows what he needs to do and does it.
Well, let us also remember that there were two souls intertwined, two souls that he was trying to save, because Bones was, implicated in this as well.
That's true too. I mean, he loses both of them, right? I mean, so he can't do it without them. I mean, it is that classic trinity that that's how the whole thing functions. It's what powered that ship. So I think you're right. I think ultimately, though, the other piece of it is, and we know this because we're fans and we get it, Spock coming back, Spock being alive, being a part of this universe, being a part of the world, means a lot of people, a lot of good is going to happen, and a lot of people are going to live. It's going to affect so many more people in such a positive way, that they ultimately, the needs of the many may actually, in fact, be being served in this case. So
he said my line. You're saying exactly what I'm thinking here.
Yeah. Well, this is why we're friends.
Well, again, let's finally start wrapping this up, and I think now you are duly required now to come back for a different film of the Star Trek franchise. So you get your pick
and show up on time.
Well, hopefully, if not, every time
that.
You're late, that's another episode you got to do with us.
Okay, all right.
So now, all right, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. How late do I got to be next time to get another one?
Here's the thing: is that I'm sad I wasn't there for 2, but 3
That's
really does lead right into 4, and I do think that, especially Harv Bennett back again writing the space scenes, the sci-fi stuff for 4. Nick Meyer coming back and writing this stuff on Earth in San Francisco. So, I mean, there's a lot of DNA shared between these movies. Leonard Nimoy back as in the director's chair. So, I would not say no to that invitation if that were to come my way. However, I'm a fan of all these movies. For God's sake, I will even come in and defend Star Trek V for many pieces.
Why does Tim need an episode for Star Trek V? Just like, why does God need a spaceship?
I think it's easy to throw everything out, the baby with the bathwater. I do think there is some stuff in 5 that is worthwhile and worth talking about. So I prefer to look at it and find the good stuff in it, and what we can take out of it and into the rest of the franchise.
So
I had to do it
intrigued because I want to see what you see.
I did a podcast recently talking about the classic 1984 Supergirl movie, and also I did one talking about this is even bigger than that. I did a different podcast where they asked me to come in and talk about Superman 4: The Quest for Peace,
Mm.
which is so loathed and despised by so many. And but there's so much positive stuff I can say about it that I was like, I'm going to be here to defend this movie. And so I don't know. I think maybe it's just because of my line of work. I know all the work that goes into it and all the people behind the scenes and everything they're trying to do. Maybe some of it falls short, but
I look at it this way.
Good stuff.
As I've said before, we're part of the Ninja Turtle generation. We've had how many iterations of Ninja Turtle since we were younger? You don't knock the franchise over the one thing. There could be kids that are coming into Star Trek now, and Starfleet Academy might be their first foray into Star Trek, and they fall in love with it. Some of us older fans may not be a huge fan of it, but guess what? I'm not going to knock that fan. You love Star Trek? Hey, man, I hope you go back and enjoy this. Mm-hmm. You like Academy? Cool on you. So that's the same way I look at these things. Like, yeah, we're going to knock the odd movies, literally the Star Trek odd movies. And you're right. Superman 4, there are good things that come out of it. I think that the fact that we're still getting that media to this day, or like, what was that one Superman film that you were associated with at one time?
I've written a couple of Superman movies actually, so I don't know.
Yeah,
some of them are back there. I don't know.
I mean, he's so good. He didn't just write one Long Halloween; he wrote the Long Halloween Part 2.
I did. I adapted Reign of the Supermen, and I did this movie called Man of Tomorrow. Man
of Tomorrow is still my number one.
Yeah, and I really did like when you're sorry, we're jumping ship here real quick, folks. Jumping starship real quick. I liked your version of Reign of Superman because it was a much easier swallow for my wife.
Wildly different. I had
so she got
it. We were under a lot of restrictions on that because it was part of this other big universe, and Long Halloween or Man of Tomorrow was part of another thing. It wasn't dependent on being adapted to reflecting a very specific book. It was like we got inspired by a lot of different books. So anyway, it was a different process. But the good news, the best thing about Reign of the Supermen, real quick, was that I got to do it with Mike Carlin was the guy at DC Comics who was giving us notes as the licensor of the characters and the story. And so and that was his story in the comics. He was the group editor of Superman. And so I never felt like, oh, well, I'm going to be out here, far afield, because he was always there, just in case we were going too far in a different direction. He was more concerned that we were capturing the spirit of the thing. And that's really what we tried to do. Anyway. But Star Trek 5, like Superman 4, I think I don't know when the last time you saw Star Trek 5 is, but
2 weeks.
But prior to that, we judge movies, we measure the quality of a movie very differently now than we did in the 1980s. And what we considered an absolute stinker in the 1980s, you look back on them now, and there's a lot that can be said about them. I mean, there's a craftsmanship that they exhibit, even if they fall short, that you don't necessarily get in a bad movie, what we consider a bad movie today. So I think that there are more redeeming qualities than perhaps you remember for something like a Star Trek 5. And the fact is, ultimately, we got Star Trek 6, so at least we have that.
So overall, all right, we'll start around the table. Eric, when it comes to Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, from a work factor from 1 out of 10, what are we giving it?
I want to give it a 7.5 out of 10. All right, because again, it is a very good, small, contained story, but it does open up the wider galaxy of the Star Trek pantheon. It shows a galvanized crew working together for a common goal. Good villain. And again, shout out to John Larroquette. I was so excited to see him in this film because he was just showing up on Night Court, and I was such a fan. And to see him on this film, he's not in. What's that?
But Chris Lloyd.
Obviously Christopher Lloyd. I mean,
if you were here on time, you would have known we expunged on him for like nobody's business.
Yeah, but Larroquette, he's not even in. If you watch the scroll, he's not on. You don't get him until you get like the deep cast. You know, he's there with Frank Welker. He's a hidden secret, and I'm so glad to see him. And so, performance, casting, 7.5 out of 10.
And to the Tim Sheridan, what are we going to give this from a work factor of 1 to 10?
This is extremely difficult. And the reason it's difficult is because I have so much love for this movie. And I also don't know what to ding it for anymore. I think when I was younger, I used to compare it to the other Star Trek movies, and maybe I would ding it because it wasn't maybe as complete as I felt the other ones were or something. I don't know.
So but what today, is Tim at this point?
I know. That's why I'm saying it's complicated. So today, I don't know what to ding it for, and I therefore have to say 10 out of 10. Warp factor 10 for me. I love this movie. It's a go-to, and I will keep going back to it. I love everything about it.
All right. So Tim Sheridan gives it a 10 out of 10. And we're going to do that right there.
It's complicated.
I mean, look, a lot of that is sentimental, perhaps, but from a filmmaking perspective, I just don't know what to ding it for. I don't know. I love it.
For me, I'm going to kind of go right in the middle. I'm going to personally give this an 8.5 out of 10. I think that we're coming off the high of the deep heavy that we got with Khan. And yes, there were those emotional scenes and there was great delivery, but I was still hoping for something that big, that stakeholdery, that if you catch my drift, like that there were monumental stakes when it came to Khan. With this, it's okay. We just got to download back into Spock. I never saw like that. Hey, the world's going to end kind of stake. So that's where I want to give it that 10. And this is just a little nitpicky stuff. And I understand, we're more refined, like you said. But I give it an 8.5 out of 10. The acting, especially, rounding out the cast like that.
Is it possible to revise mine? Is it even possible to...
It says it's complicated.
Is it possible to give it a 10 plus with the caveat, I'll fly her apart. I'll fly her apart for this movie. I will. 10.5, 11, 11.5. I will freaking fly her apart.
I think it's a pacing issue. Because the duel between the Enterprise and Khan Reliant was the whole movie. And so we had a lot of time to really explore the antagonism. Whereas in this one, once the Enterprise meets the Klingons, everything happens very fast. It's almost a side quest because we got to get, Spock and do the download. It was almost treated as an afterthought. I
don't completely agree that Star Trek 2 is all the Mutara Nebula battle. I think that maybe it feels that way because it's so beautifully shot and paced, and it feels
it's very tight.
It's so rich that by the way, it's coming through now, Con. It's my favorite thing in the whole.
We need time.
It's coming.
Yeah, where are his glasses in the next movie? Just saying.
They show up in form.
Well, they come back. They do come
back.
Yeah, we still miss a whole film. Just saying, continuity.
That's the beauty of it.
They will be again.
And they will be again. That's the beauty. So yes. But just to your point, that's what I'm trying not to do. And the reason why I'll fly her apart over Warp Factor 10 is because I'm trying not to compare it to Star Trek 2 or Star Trek 4 or anything else. If I'm just looking at it as Star Trek 3 on its own, as the search for Spock, I just don't know what to ding it for. I love it, and I think it all works for me. And so if I were going to go down the road of saying, how does this stack up to Star Trek 2? Then I've got a lot of, dings that I'll find for it. But
this is why I'm happy I have him on. Because I have the biggest shit-eating grin on right now. Because, yes, if I look at it just as Star Trek 3 and I take off the cotton-colored glasses, yes, you are absolutely right. It is a damn near perfect film.
It's great. Yeah, it's just great. But it's not as good as Star Trek 2, and it's not as good as Star Trek 6. And there's a lot about it that's not as good as Star Trek 4. But Star Trek 4 is apples and oranges. You can't compare any of the other movies.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
So that'll be an interesting one to see if you can sort of rate that on its own without looking at it in the context, because it is so difficult to compare it to everything else.
Well,
and yet it's the completion of that trilogy, which is interesting.
Yes. Like, it's such an important film in the series of films, but it's also so singular in that it appealed to the audience of its time, and it said, let's set this in the present. You know, it's a completely different animal. You're absolutely right. Apples and oranges.
Well, we're going to have to take a spin around the sun on that one next week when we come back for Reflections of the Silver Screen during our summer trek. Again, folks, my name is Off the Cuff Tom. With me, as always, the co-host, the great Eric McClanahan. And Tim, we can't say how many thank yous from here all the way out to the Delta Quadrant for joining us tonight. It is an absolute pleasure, not only just to get to talk to you, but to also call you friend. I forever and will always be your friend.
I'm so honored to be here, honored to have been asked, and so honored to have been such an a-hole who showed up late because he was watching Transformers.
Again, completely legitimate excuse. Dude,
no.
Like, I have Transformers over my shoulder. I've got them up here. I've got my Megatron. I mean, I pulled down, one of your Bumblebees. So trust me,
I just live in the early the early 80s. I guess that's where I live. The entire 80s. I think I just live in the 80s. That's what I do.
Why do you think we're doing this?
So once again, everybody, thank you so very much for joining us. And make sure to come back next week where we will be talking about Star Trek 4 and, the Klingon commander figure right there.
Klingon leader.
Yeah, Klingon leader. Marty, we got to get back in the bird of prey. Again, a joke you missed if you would have shown up on time. Anyhow. But thank you so very much for watching. Come on back here to Reflections of the Silver Screen with me and Eric. And again, as a wise man once said, be kind to yourself and be kind to others. Don't just be good. Be off the cuff. How about?